Former Northwest Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Sello Maema, continues his testimony before the Nkabinde Inquiry into Advocate Andrew Chauke's fitness to hold office. Maema, who is the lead prosecutor, in the racketeering case against former KZN Hawks head Johan Booysen, told the inquiry that former NPA boss Shamila Batohi failed to act on allegations against the Cato Manor unit before leaving the NPA for the International Criminal Court in The Hague back in 2018. Batohi was the Director of Public Prosecutions in KZN at the time of the alleged extra-judicial killings by this unit. SABC News reporter Ofentse Setimo is watching the story and joins us now live where this inquiry is taking place in Pretoria. And Ofentse, Shamila Batohi may have quote-unquote walked out of the inquiry, but her name and the role she allegedly played still featuring quite prominently there.
Definitely, and a good morning to you, Ayanda. Well, we understand that you remember just before she walked out of the proceedings sometime last year, Advocate Shamila Batohi had conceded that she actually relied on a panel report and did not actually go through the 23 dockets that were linked to the racketeering charges that were leveled against former KZN Hawks boss Johan Booysen and members of the Cato Manor police unit. Now, what has transpired since then is that the lead prosecutor, as you rightfully mentioned in your intro, that is Advocate Sello Maema, has come forward and he's currently sort of analyzing the dockets themselves and also the ballistic reports that were actually compiled at the crime scenes where most of these victims of extrajudicial killings were actually killed. And we understand that from what we heard so far, he was saying that around the times of these extrajudicial killings, it was Advocate Shamila Batohi, who was the Director of Public Prosecutions in KZN, who could have acted on these allegations. But unfortunately, you know, there was a to and fro where Major General Johan Booysen would say that allegedly there is some sort of a conspiracy against him because he was probing some of the people who were then closer to President Jacob Zuma. So currently, we are still going through the dockets and still going through those ballistic reports which are contradicting some of the assertions that were made by members of the Cato Manor police unit when they were saying that most of the apprehensions that they made, the people would try to resist arrest and eventually they would be shot down. But from what we've heard, you know, there is some sort of a contradiction in terms of the ammunition that was actually found at the crime scene actually not fitting the type of firearms that they said were actually used. And if I can mention this, most of the killings actually emanated from the murder of Superintendent Setimo, who was investigating taxi violence incidents. And upon his murder, that's when all these extrajudicial killings started to take place. So we are currently sort of analyzing the crime scenes where members of the KwaMaphumulo Taxi Association were actually being targeted under the guise of trying to sort out the murder of Superintendent Konko.
Yeah, and of course, you know, who could ever forget just how much of a slow start it seems there was in this inquiry at the beginning, Ofentse. What's your sense about whether or not the commissioners have finally gotten their rhythm and are continuing, let's say, much smoother than they started?
Well, you know, a decision was actually taken to sort of reject an application for postponement by the evidence leaders as they were having trouble sort of getting people to come and testify on this matter that's pertaining to the Cato Manor unit and Major General Johan Booysen. Then a suggestion was made by the legal counsel for Advocate Chauke to say that they would bring forward their witnesses. So currently, it was Advocate Muiponi Noko, who was the former Director of Public Prosecutions in KZN, who actually concluded her testimony, and now it's currently a former Northwest Deputy Director of Public Prosecution who's actually on the stand. And in fact, there is a common assertion between the two witnesses that have recently come forward, where they are saying that they also faced similar charges to those that are actually faced by Advocate Chauke, saying that to a certain extent, they were pushed to end up leaving the NPA as they were being probed because they were part of a team that was pursuing racketeering charges against the Cato Manor and Major General Johan Booysen.